Good morning/afternoon/evening today. I want to talk about a force so powerful, so essential, yet so often overlooked in leadership: hope. Hope is not wishful thinking. It's not blind optimism. Hope is the vision that sees beyond the current storm, the fire that keeps teams moving forward when the path is unclear. In times of crisis, hope is not a luxury. It is leadership's greatest asset. Leaders who harness hope don't just lead projects, they lead people. They inspire action in the face of fear, unity in the face of division, and courage in the face of uncertainty. Where fear paralyzes, hope energizes. It gives people something to believe in, something worth working for, and a reason to keep going when everything else says stop.
Martin Luther King Jr. had hope, not just in a dream, but in the people who would carry it forward. Nelson Mandela held hope in a cell, and it became a light that changed a nation. These were not just leaders, they were hope bringers. Hope is not a passive emotion. It is a powerful catalyst for movement. In leadership, hope serves as the engine that drives teams forward, even when the road is uncertain or steep. When people believe that a better outcome is possible, they are more willing to take the first step, even if they don't yet see the entire staircase. A hopeful leader paints a picture of what could be, not just what is.
They create a sense of direction and purpose that energizes those around them. In times of difficulty, people often freeze. They fear failure, they fear change, or they simply feel stuck. But when a leader communicates hope clearly and authentically, that energy becomes contagious. People start to believe in possibilities again. They begin to push forward, take initiative, and contribute with renewed passion. Hope doesn't eliminate obstacles. It changes how people respond to them. It transforms setbacks into learning experiences rather than dead ends. A hopeful team is a proactive team. They look for solutions instead of dwelling on problems. They take risks because they believe that effort can lead to progress. They move not out of fear of failure, but out of faith in success. History shows us that some of the most extraordinary movements began with nothing more than a hopeful vision. From civil rights marches to breakthroughs in science and technology, action was born from belief. That belief, nurtured and modeled by leaders, becomes the fuel that empowers people to act, to strive, and to persist. When a leader shows hope, it's not just about boosting morale, it's about unlocking potential. A hopeful mindset reawakens commitment, fosters creativity, and gives individuals a reason to care again. It turns a disengaged team into a mission-driven force, because people who are hopeful are people who act. Resilience is the backbone of any successful team or leader. It's the ability to withstand adversity, bounce back from setbacks, and keep moving forward despite challenges. But what fuels resilience? The answer is hope. Without hope, resilience becomes nearly impossible. It's like trying to stand tall in a storm with nothing to anchor you. Hope is that anchor. It gives people the emotional strength to endure, to rebuild, and to rise again. When leaders embody and share hope, they instill a mindset that setbacks are not the end of the story, but rather a chapter in a longer, more meaningful journey. Hope changes how people interpret failure. Instead of seeing it as defeat, hopeful individuals see it as feedback, a signpost guiding them to a better path. This perspective is what gives birth to resilience. In the face of disappointment or loss, people often feel the urge to give up. They may lose confidence in their abilities, in the system, or in the direction they're heading. But a hopeful leader steps in and reminds them that the current pain is temporary, that there is still a purpose worth fighting for. That encouragement can be the difference between a team that crumbles under pressure and one that grows stronger because of it. Hope doesn't ignore pain or pretend everything is perfect. On the contrary, it acknowledges the difficulty but insists that there's something better on the other side. It's what keeps teams focused on the bigger picture, even when the present feels overwhelming. It's what allows people to persevere, not because they have all the answers, but because they believe the answers can be found. In organizations, hope-driven resilience manifests in creative problem solving, stronger collaboration, and an unwillingness to let setbacks define the outcome. People work harder not because they're forced to, but because they believe in what they're doing. They stay late not out of obligation, but out of commitment to a shared vision they believe is possible. Resilience doesn't come from strategy alone. It comes from spirit, and hope is the spirit that makes resilience come alive in leadership. It's what keeps the team standing when the winds of doubt blow hardest. It's what gives them the strength to not only recover, but to come back wiser, stronger, and more determined than ever before. Hope is not just an emotional comfort. It is a strategic, visionary tool that separates good leaders from great ones. While many leaders focus solely on solving problems in the present, truly impactful leaders use hope to cast a compelling vision for the future. They see beyond what is and dare to imagine what could be. This forward, thinking mindset is what galvanizes people, unites teams, and sets entire organizations on a path toward meaningful progress. Hope allows leaders to dream in detail. It gives them the mental and emotional clarity to envision a destination that may not yet exist, but can be built. Where fear sees limits, hope sees opportunities. Where others see dead ends, hopeful leaders see alternate routes. This hopeful vision becomes a map, a guide, and a rallying cry for everyone around them. A leader who uses hope as a visionary tool understands that people don't just want to be managed. They want to be led somewhere. They want to feel that their work matters, that it's part of something larger than themselves. Hope provides the why, behind the what, and the how. It transforms daily tasks into meaningful contributions. It shifts the mindset from "we have to get through this" to "we're working towards something better." In times of crisis, when chaos clouds judgment and uncertainty reigns, hope acts as a beacon. It gives people a direction to follow, a star to navigate by. This is critical, because without a sense of where they're headed, teams often lose focus, motivation, and cohesion. But with hope illuminating the path, even the darkest moments become bearable, because people trust that the journey has a purpose. Great leaders don't always have the power to change the circumstances immediately, but they do have the power to change the perspective. Hope is how they do it. It's how they empower others to believe in possibilities beyond the present situation. It's how they give meaning to struggle and purpose to perseverance. By communicating a hopeful vision, leaders shape the mindset of their teams. They plant seeds of belief in what's possible, and through consistent action, they help that belief take root. Over time, that vision begins to manifest, not because of luck or chance, but because hope kept people moving in the right direction long before the goal was ever within reach. Leadership is not just about authority, it's about influence. And that influence is rooted in trust. When people trust their leader, they are more willing to follow, to engage, and to give their best. Hope plays a foundational role in building and sustaining that trust, especially during times of uncertainty or difficulty. When a leader expresses genuine hope, not empty promises, but sincere belief in the team and the future, it creates a sense of psychological safety and emotional stability. It tells the team, "We're not alone, we're not stuck, and we're not giving up." Hope signals to people that the leader has a clear sense of direction, even when circumstances are tough. It shows that the leader believes in their potential, their efforts, and their worth. That belief builds trust, not just in the leader, but within the team itself. When people see that their leader is hopeful, they begin to trust that things can get better. They start to believe that their work is meaningful, that their voices matter, and that they are part of something worthwhile. At the same time, hope has a powerful effect on morale. It lifts people out of discouragement and fatigue. In a workplace or organization where stress, pressure, or failure have taken a toll, morale can drop quickly. People disengage. They show up physically but check out mentally and emotionally. That's when hope becomes critical. A hopeful leader reignites the inner fire. Through their words, attitude, and actions, they remind people of what they're fighting for and why it still matters. Hope gives people a reason to care again. It replenishes energy and renews passion. And when morale is high, teams collaborate more effectively, communicate more openly, and persist longer through difficulties. Hope fosters a sense of belonging, a feeling that we're in this together and we're going to make it through. That kind of unity cannot be manufactured through mandates or policies. It comes from the heart of leadership, and it's cultivated by hope. Trust and morale are not built in a day, but they can be destroyed in a moment. That's why hopeful leadership is not a one-time speech or gesture. It's a daily commitment. It's in how leaders respond to challenges, how they communicate during setbacks, how they show up when others are weary. It's in their tone, their transparency, and their ability to acknowledge reality while still pointing to a brighter horizon. When people know their leader is hopeful, they feel safer, stronger, and more willing to invest themselves in the mission. Hope becomes the glue that holds trust and morale together, even when everything else feels uncertain. And once those two elements are in place, trust and morale, teams become unstoppable. Innovation doesn't thrive in environments dominated by fear, doubt, or rigid conformity. It flourishes where there is freedom to imagine, to question, to explore. And at the heart of that freedom lies hope. Hope is the emotional and psychological space that gives people permission to try something new, even if it hasn't been done before. It allows for risk because it believes in the possibility of reward. Hope is the belief that tomorrow can be better than today, and that we have the power to shape it. In leadership, fostering innovation means creating a culture where people feel safe to express ideas without fear of failure or judgment. A hopeful leader understands that mistakes are not evidence of incompetence. They are stepping stones to growth. When a leader conveys hope, they are saying to their team, "I believe in your potential. I believe your ideas are valuable. I believe we can solve this, even if we haven't yet." That kind of encouragement is what unlocks the creative potential hidden within every person. Hope empowers people to think differently. It gives them the courage to challenge assumptions, to experiment, and to build without having all the answers up front. It removes the fear of getting it wrong and replaces it with the excitement of figuring it out. And in a world where innovation is the key to survival and success, this mindset is everything. Think about every major breakthrough, whether in science, technology, medicine, or social change. None of it came from people who were content with the status quo. It came from people who hoped for something better and dared to pursue it. They questioned limitations. They looked at problems not as roadblocks but as puzzles waiting to be solved. That spirit of hopeful curiosity is what drives progress. A hopeful leader sets the tone by modeling resilience and vision. They encourage teams to look beyond the immediate problem and ask, "What if? What if there's another way? What if we tried something no one else has? What if failure isn't the end, but the beginning of something better?" These questions don't just inspire. They activate the brain's most innovative pathways. Moreover, hope creates emotional energy. It gives people the stamina to keep pushing when results aren't immediate. Innovation rarely happens overnight. It requires persistence, revision, and often a string of small failures before success appears. Hope sustains that process. It keeps teams engaged when the solution is still out of reach. It transforms trial and error from a burden into an adventure. When a leader leads with hope, they turn their organization into a lab of possibilities. People no longer fear change. They begin to seek it. They stop resisting disruption. They start leading it. Because with hope at the center, innovation stops being a risk and starts being a responsibility. Emotions spread. In any group or organization, the emotional tone of the leader becomes the emotional tone of the team. That's why hope is not just a personal trait. It's a collective force, and it starts at the top. When a leader leads with hope, that mindset ripples outward, influencing attitudes, perspectives, and behaviors throughout the entire team. Hope is contagious, and in leadership, it has the power to transform not just individuals, but entire cultures. People naturally mirror what they observe, especially from those they look to for guidance. When a leader consistently demonstrates hope in the face of difficulty, it sends an unspoken message: we can get through this. We are capable. The future is still worth working for. That kind of message doesn't just lift spirits. It ignites action. People begin to carry that same belief into their own roles. They respond to challenges with optimism instead of fear, with collaboration instead of retreat. This emotional contagion works both ways. Just as fear, cynicism, and doubt can quickly poison morale, hope can uplift it. When hope is present, meetings feel different. Projects feel purposeful. Conversations shift from blame to solution. The workplace becomes an environment where people are emotionally engaged, mentally invested, and spiritually energized. They're not just surviving the day, they're striving towards something better. It's important to recognize that hope doesn't mean denying reality. In fact, the most contagious form of hope is the kind that acknowledges hardship honestly, but insists on a meaningful path forward. People resonate with authenticity. They don't need leaders who pretend everything is fine. They need leaders who say, yes, it's hard, but we're not giving up. That honest yet hopeful approach strengthens trust and motivates perseverance. One of the most powerful things about hope's contagious nature is how it multiplies. When one person believes in a possibility, it might seem idealistic. But when a team of people starts to believe, something shifts. Confidence builds, energy rises, momentum grows, ideas flow more freely, collaboration becomes deeper and more inspired. The impossible begins to feel achievable, not because the odds changed, but because the mindset did. Even in the smallest interactions, a word of encouragement, a nod of belief, a moment of recognition, hope is transmitted. Leaders who understand this know that every conversation is a chance to plant a seed. Every decision, no matter how small, either feeds hope or fuels doubt. That awareness becomes a guiding principle. Hopeful leadership isn't loud or flashy. It's consistent, compassionate, and intentional. When hope is embedded in a team or organization, it becomes a shared language. It becomes a culture of belief. And once that takes root, people start spreading it themselves. They become carriers of hope in their own circles, passing it on through their actions, their leadership, and their mindset. The leader may have started the spark, but the flame spreads through the people. At the end of a leader's journey, people may remember what was accomplished, but they remember even more how they felt during the process. Numbers fade, results change, but the emotional imprint of hope endures. That is the true power of hopeful leadership. It creates a legacy that outlives titles, job roles, or professional achievements. Hope becomes the invisible thread that ties a leader to the people they've impacted. long after the projects are finished and the goals are checked off. When leaders infuse hope into their teams, they're not just motivating in the moment. They're shaping mindsets that last for years. They're helping people see themselves differently. They're instilling a belief system that says, I can overcome. I can contribute. I can make a difference. That belief doesn't fade when the leader steps down. It carries on in the people who were influenced, and it spreads through the way those people lead, work, and live going forward. This is the essence of legacy. It's not about being remembered as the smartest in the room or the one who always had the answers. It's about being remembered as the leader who believed, not just in the mission, but in the people. Hopeful leaders elevate others. They don't just drive performance, they lift potential. They see strengths before others do. They offer second chances. They communicate possibility when the world offers pessimism. And through that, they become more than just leaders. They become catalysts for long-term transformation. Legacy is also built in the moments no one sees. The quiet encouragement in a private conversation. The patient guidance during someone's failure. The unwavering faith in a team that's losing momentum. These seemingly small acts of hope often become turning points in someone else's story. Years later, people won't quote your spreadsheets or your strategies, but they will remember how you made them feel when things were hard, and they'll remember how your hope became their anchor. Organizations that are built on hope are also more sustainable. They're not built solely around one person's vision. They're infused with a culture of belief that persists beyond any single individual. That's why hopeful leaders often leave behind stronger, more adaptable, more inspired teams. They don't just leave systems in place. They leave hearts empowered. They don't just pass on responsibilities. They pass on resilience, confidence, and vision. Even in times of disruption or transition, a legacy of hope continues to work quietly, shaping attitudes, behaviors, and choices. Future leaders often rise out of the shadows of those who first believed in them. The ripple effect of hope is infinite, because once a person has seen what's possible, once they've felt the impact of someone who chose to lead with hope, they carry that spark into every room they enter. Hope, when lived out consistently in leadership, becomes a gift that keeps on giving. It becomes a blueprint for future leaders to follow, not one of perfection, but of purpose, not one of dominance, but of belief. And that belief becomes the cornerstone of a legacy that no amount of time can erase. In a world often filled with uncertainty, rapid change, and unprecedented challenges, leadership rooted in hope is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Hope is what fuels courage in the face of fear, clarity in times of confusion, and unity when division threatens to break us apart. It is not about ignoring reality, but about believing in the possibility of transformation, even in the darkest moments. As leaders, our greatest responsibility is not just to deliver results, but to ignite belief, to help others see beyond the obstacles and imagine a better future. When we lead with hope, we do more than guide people through tasks. We awaken something within them. We remind them that their effort matters, that their future is still unfolding, and that together there is always a way forward. So let us choose to lead with hope, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Let us be the leaders who inspire resilience, spark innovation, build trust, and leave behind not just a record of success, but a legacy of belief. Because when hope leads the way, the impossible becomes achievable, and the future becomes a place worth striving for.